Everest mountaineers say one of the most perilous sections is when they have to navigate their way through the Khumbu icefall on the South Col route. They put themselves at the mercy of giant tumbling ice blocks and deep crevasses. Well, that danger is set to get worse as global warming and human activity continues to destabilise the Khumbu glacier. The problem has prompted Nepal to announce it will move Everest Base Camp to a safer site with no year-round ice. Well, for mountain guide Alan Hinks, Everest Base Camp is a home away from home. Alan became the first Briton to climb all 14 of the world's 8,000-metre peaks, and he joins me now from North Yorkshire. Welcome to the programme. You know this base camp very well. Were you expecting something like this to happen? Just describe what it was like at base camp on the recent times you were there.
Yeah, well, I guess, welcome to North Yorkshire as well, by the way. It's breezy and hot here, but a bit grey. But, yeah, base camp, it can be hot when the sun's out because you're close, you know, you're in a thinner atmosphere. But basically, the air temperature is very rarely above freezing. It's a bit like a medieval encampment, really. You're living in tents, but these are modern tents. So it's a bit of a dichotomy, you know. And you've got Wi-Fi from satellites. In fact, nowadays there is a 4G signal at base camp. In fact, you've probably got a better signal than you have in parts of North Yorkshire, to be frank. There are toilets there now. People take toilets up. It's an interesting sort of place, if you see, a bit medieval but a bit modern. And obviously you have to deal with sewage problems as well.
OK, and I think on that point, without going into too much detail, I mean, human urine is causing quite a few problems there. Maybe you can address that in a moment. But in terms of the damage, the melting of the glacier around it and the danger that poses for climbers like you, just talk us through that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, the sweeping statement is that, you know, global warming, climate change, whatever you want to call it, and the glaciers are melting and receding somewhat. But that's been happening for a long time. I think it's, you know, it's a bit simple to say it's just, you know, global warming. I'm sure man has had some sort of impact. But where I'm sitting now in North Yorkshire, several thousand years ago, we were under an ice sheet, probably half a kilometre thick. So it, you know, that sort of change has been happening for a long time. And people say, well, as the glaciers melt on Everest, it's going to make it more dangerous. Well, it might, but it might make it safer. We don't really know. But, I mean, a sweeping statement is, you know, as the ice melts, it can loosen rock on the mountain, so you can get more rockfall, which makes it more dangerous. But once that rockfall's swept away, who knows? It could make it safer. But so I'm playing devil's advocate, actually. We always say that it's going to make it more dangerous, you know. But someone has actually tried to find another way through the so-called dangerous icefall in Everest this year. A French climber, Marc Battard, has made another route through, which may be safer. We don't know yet.
OK, just briefly, because we haven't got a lot longer left, the new base camp is going to be a bit lower. Is that sad for you, sad news, or doesn't really matter?
No, it's not sad. I think it could be safer. If there's an avalanche higher on the mountain, you lower down. It does mean you have to, you know, climb a little further, I guess. No, I think that could be OK, putting it a little bit lower down, yeah. And, yeah, no problem.
Have you got another ascent in your books?
Plenty of unclimbed mountains, unnamed mountains in the world. I did climb an unclimbed mountain once. I call it Peak Fiona after my daughter. So maybe things like that. Everest, will I do it again? Might do if there's an interesting project on Everest, you know, filming or something like that.
Alan, I've got to cut you short. We're out of time. Thank you very much indeed. Enjoy the weather. Bye.
Our review of text, history, and frankly just common sense all confirmed the Vice President's first instinct on that point. There is no justifiable basis to conclude that the Vice President has that kind of authority.
As I was dropping off the note, I remember hearing the word wimp. Either he called him a wimp. I don't remember if he said, you are a wimp, you'll be a wimp. Wimp is the word I remember.
The Vice President did not want to take any chance that the world would see the Vice President of the United States fleeing the United States Capitol. He was determined that we would complete the work that we had set out to do that day, that it was his constitutional duty to see through. and the rioters who had breached the Capitol would not have the Saturday.
This morning, police want to know why a gunman stormed a church potluck dinner before opening fire on the crowd.
Active shooter situation, multiple patients at this time, at least 3 patients. Scene is not secure.
According to police, the shooter ran into a church in Vestavia Hills outside Birmingham just after 6 p.m. Thursday and shot at least 3 people, killing 2 of the victims. People jumping into action, holding down the suspect until police arrived.
Shooter's been held down. They got the shooter restrained.
Deeply moved by the radical support of love from many people reaching out from all over the country, our clergy, our first responders who are gathered now with families at St. Stephen's.
America's latest shooting tragedy comes as Senate negotiators say they have nearly agreed on the text of the bill to curb gun violence in the U.S. Senator John Cornyn, the lead Republican negotiator, is hinting the deal could fall apart if they drag on, saying it's now or never.
There are a couple of issues that need to be settled before we can reach an agreement.
In Cornyn's home state of Texas, the Uvalde School Police Department is facing new scrutiny for their response to the elementary school mass shooting that left 19 children dead.
The most respectful thing that I think we can do is to try to get some of those lingering questions answered for the people in this city.
A legislative committee is investigating why officers waited 77 minutes before going into the classroom where students were trapped with the shooter. The committee speaking to 5 witnesses Thursday, including the principal, the school superintendent, and a custodian.
Are you commenting, Superintendent?
While the superintendent avoided questions after the hearing, the school's principal broke her silence, speaking out for the first time since the shooting.
They're going to compile a report. I'm just concerned for my families and my kids.
The final victim of the Uvalde shooting will be laid to rest tomorrow.
In the meantime, we're going to turn now to the daring U.S. raid in Syria that ended with the capture of a top ISIS leader. The U.S. says that leader had planned attacks on American forces before. Mary Bruce with new details tonight on the daring operation that captured him alive.
The raid by U.S. Special Forces launched under the cover of night into rebel-held northwest Syria, reportedly landing in this village. Capturing an ISIS leader the U.S. says is responsible for coordinating attacks on American forces. Hani Ahmed al-Kurdi, an experienced bomb maker. There were no U.S. injuries and no damage to any military aircraft. It's the latest daring mission in the same region where ISIS leader al-Baghdadi and his successor blew themselves up after being cornered by U.S. troops. ISIS was territorially defeated in Syria in 2019. But in January, hundreds of fighters escaped during a brazen prison break in the northeast. Now, because he was captured alive, al-Kurdi is a potentially valuable source of information about ISIS and its network around the world. Tonight, he is in custody and is being questioned. David.
All right, Mary Bruce live at the White House. Thank you, Mary.
One day after the Fed's big interest rate hike, an about face on Wall Street today. The Dow losing 741 points. The S&P and NASDAQ also down. Tom Costello was watching it all and a development that could affect your summer vacation. Tom, what's behind the sell-off today?
A real concern that the economy may be in a recession already or certainly headed for one, although President Biden says he does not think a recession is inevitable. We saw market debate today. Did the Fed do enough or not enough? In the meantime, the transportation secretary met with airline execs today, and he said he does not want to see a repeat of the mess we saw at airports over Memorial Day.
With as many as 2.3 million passengers flying every day this summer, now approaching 2019 levels, the airlines are under pressure to avoid a July 4th repeat of the Memorial Day meltdown when 2,700 flights were canceled nationwide.
Hopefully people just kind of get there with like no more complications, no more delays.
Late today, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg gathered airline CEOs in a virtual meeting, asking for assurances that the rest of the summer vacation season will go smoothly.
I let them know that, this is a moment when we're really counting on them to deliver reliably for the traveling public. Look, there's a lot of pent-up demand out there.
Among the biggest choke points, Florida. Passenger traffic has surged more than 100% over pre-pandemic levels at virtually every airport in the state. Sarasota up 133%, Miami up 113%, Tampa up 105. Increased military and space flights have further restricted airspace, just as virtually every airline trims its schedules or parks planes due to a shortage of pilots. Today, Delta's pilots union, in contract talks, issued an open letter to customers acknowledging a rough start to vacation season, saying, "We empathize and share in your frustration over the delays, cancellations, and disrupted travel plans you've experienced." The union says pilots are exhausted from working overtime and are now calling out.
Pilots are saying, hey, I'm tired, I've done enough, and I'm going to make that tough call. It's a tough call.
Delta tells NBC News we continuously evaluate our staffing models and plan ahead so that we can recover quickly when unforeseen circumstances arise.
Meanwhile, sources say the FAA is adding 30 air traffic controllers to Jacksonville to help relieve staffing issues at a critical choke point.
We got 4 championships. You know, like, God is great, the ability to be on the stage and play with amazing teammates against a great Boston Celtics team that, you know, gave us everything to try to get to the finish line. This one hits different for sure.
I'm obviously thrilled for everyone in that room, and a lot of people had a big hand in this. But I think the thing with Steph is, you know, without him, none of this happens.